Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Doc Talk. This is episode 51B.
I'm Cam and this is Jilly.
Yes, this is the B'rit Hadashah, or the New Testament discussion of this week's Torah portion. I'm going to do something a little different this week. The Torah portion is Luke 18:35 through 19:27. There's three main aspects of it, but I'm going to go backwards.
Okay.
I'm going to do the last one first, because
First
this
shall be
week
last.
the first shall be last.
There you go.
And the last shall be first. All right. So last week we see he's on his way to Jerusalem for the final finale, the grand finale, basically. I mean, the big event is what
Right.
I call it. I like to call his
purpose.
his purpose. His crucifixion, the first big event, and his second coming, the second big event.
Yeah.
So sometimes when I make parallels, that's what I'll say. So this is the first big event. It's getting close. They are going through a place called Jericho. Jericho is a very unique place within Israel. Doing my research, I came across a description that I thought was kind of interesting. It says, copious and abundant springs breaking out of an otherwise inhospitable dry wilderness made Jericho a city of palms, a green oasis in the desert, and a place of rich and abundant agriculture. And I thought, isn't that just like the Lord? He's always using physical things that we can see and experience so we can understand spiritual things.
Right.
So I'm going to start at the end in 1911 with a parable. Basically, it starts like this. And as they were hearing this, he spoke another parable because he was near Jerusalem and they thought that the reign of Elohim was about to be manifest straightway. Now that's important. See, all the disciples and all the people with Yeshua gathering now thought this is it.
Yeah.
They thought they were on their
going
way
in.
to Jerusalem and he was taking his kingdom.
Yeah.
So he gives them this parable about the 10 servants, which I find very interesting because what is Yeshua's calling? His calling is to save that which was lost, which was the lost sheep of Israel. Didn't he said that? He said, I only come for the lost sheep of Israel.
Right. Yeah, those are his words.
Right. So his big event was to bring back in the lost sheep of Israel. So he gives the parable of the 10 servants, and he says the master is going to take a kingship, which is what Yeshua is doing.
Right.
He's going back to Judah, the
Right.
southern kingdom, to say, all right, king's here, it's time to reign. But these 10 servants are from the northern kingdom, basically, for this analogy. So you've got the 10 servants, and they all get one mina, which for this discussion would represent the Holy Spirit. So, yes. So each one gets the same thing, because isn't that what Joel says? Isn't that what Acts 2 says? In the last days, I pour out my spirit on all mankind. Right. Your sons and your daughters will prophesy. Your men and your women will. That's what the Holy Spirit does. He's not a respecter of persons.
Right.
He doesn't say, I'm sorry, you're not of this group, or you're not of this group, or you're from this denomination, or you're not from this. No. Ask and ye shall receive.
Yeah, and you're all given a measure.
Yes.
Not your measure's bigger. It's all the same measure.
It's the same measure. It's the same mina.
Right.
But one of them produces 10 more. One of them produces 5 more, and one just covers it up in a handkerchief and does nothing with it. Right. Okay, this is representing of the servants today. We all get the same Holy Spirit, but the Torah is our basis. It's the foundation. It's what is expected of us. Remember, a few weeks ago we talked about the servant who, when he goes out into the field and he comes back in, that the master's not like, oh, great, you fixed me dinner.
Thank you.
And he's praised for doing his job. That's what's expected of him.
Right.
It's what is above and beyond. And that's what the Holy Spirit is given to us for, because we're all, like Cam said, wheels in a cog. We all have a job, and the Holy Spirit is to guide us and lead us into that job. Yeah. Now, so while there are 10 servants, he only mentions 3. The first one does 10. He multiplies it, trades, gets 10 more. The other one gets 5, and the other does nothing. So let's think about that today. The first group, right after Messiah, they were living in the land. They could produce tenfold.
Because
they could
there
do
was
it all.
a temple. They could have kept every single
Right. And as they go out to Samaria and the rest of the world, it gets a little smaller because you're not in the land, so there are so many commands you can't fulfill.
Right.
There's so many things you can't do. But the point is, are you guarding the word?
Right.
Are you doing what you can? See, the one who did nothing, that would be the one for today. He would be so far removed from Torah. He's just, no, I'm just going to keep my salvation in my back pocket, but I'm not going to really do anything to it. But the problem is that servant is thrown. It doesn't say it in this one, but in the Matthew 25 version, it says that servant is thrown into darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth.
But no fire.
But no fire. And that's important because I really believe that the Lord is showing me something the last couple of weeks with life and death. So what do we know about Torah? That it's a lamp, right?
Yeah.
And a light to our path. So when we have Torah, when we walk in Torah, it's our light.
Right.
So darkness is just those thrown out with no Torah.
Right.
So let's think about the Messianic age. What is that? He talks about those are to enter his rest, right? That's the Lord's day.
Right.
It's his rest. So if you are walking Torah, you love his ways, I would imagine you're going to be there while Yeshua is teaching it from the mountain so we can learn it the correct way, live it the correct way. But we also know that there's people all over the world who aren't near Jerusalem, who aren't walking in Torah because they don't get rain. They die early. And there's a big rebellion at the end.
Right. They don't get rain if they don't go. So what it's implying is they're going through the motions without the heart. And that's why in the very end, when Hasatan comes back
released
for Gog and Magog, why people, because their hearts aren't circumcised, they're just going through the motions. So they can so easily be like, yeah, finally, they'll
be
it's
like Korah. It is like Korah.
Exactly, it's like
and
Korah.
what does it say that the Lord does at the end of Revelation? It says he consumes them, he destroys them with fire.
Yes, he does.
Oh, very good. Yeah, see, it all goes full circle.
Absolutely.
All right, so
it's like the same author wrote the whole thing.
I know. Wow. Amazing. All right, so going with the knowledge of that parable, moving on to the next story, it's Zacheus. Now, we all know the story about Zacheus. He was a wee little man. A wee little man was he. So he wanted to see Yeshua. So he took that step of, there was something in him. He was a tax collector, the worst of the worst. A big time sinner. But there was something in him that says, I need to see this man. I need to see him. So he runs ahead of the procession, basically, kingly procession coming through. And he climbs up in a sycamore tree. Now, Yeshua's just walking along, minding his own business, and then he stops. He looks up. He sees Zacheus and tells him, Zacheus, come down because I'm staying at your house tonight. Now, this is the big, epiphany that I got this week. Yeshua, his foundation is in Torah. He's come for the lost sheep of Israel. He's full of the Holy Spirit, walking in the Spirit. That is why he was able to stop. It was only by the Spirit that he knew that that man was searching for him, that he was a lost sheep, and that he needed to come down. And we know that he was a lost sheep because it says in 9 and 10, and Yeshua said to him, today deliverance has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham, for the son of Adam has come to seek and save what was lost. So my point really is this. If we are walking in Torah, and that is our foundation, and we are seeking Messiah, and we are looking forward to his second coming, the next big event, the Holy Spirit is going to work through us abundantly for a job that we have, specifically you have, and specifically I have, and Cam has, and it doesn't mean we all have the same job. Right. But if we're just sitting around like the Israelites back in the wilderness, we're going to end up following the wrong Christ because we're grumbling. We're grumbling because they're not getting it together, and we're grumbling because they don't do all the commandments, and those people aren't wearing tzitzits, and they don't cover their head, and all we're doing is grumbling, and we don't know what the Holy Spirit, what place everyone is at, and what their journey looks like, and where they're going. See, this man, all the people, it says that they all grumbled. Look, on 7, and seeing it, they all grumbled, saying, he has gone to stay with a man who is a sinner.
And that has to happen because they grumbled against Moses.
Yes.
They have to grumble against Yeshua.
And if we're the body, they're going to grumble against us.
Right.
And we need to be careful on what side of that grumbling we're at. Because if we are truly being led by the Holy Spirit, then our walking out Torah will testify to the sinners, to the ones who aren't doing what they're supposed to do, to say, hey, there's something different.
Right.
But if all we ever do is look at everyone and judge, the Holy Spirit gives gifts, but I don't remember judgment being one of those gifts.
It is not.
Right? It's not one of those gifts.
I would go even a little further back. It is if we're studying Torah, but before we got to this point of understanding Torah, because we were seeking the Lord,
yes,
we got to this part that took us to this part that took us to this part. So even to look at those who maybe aren't studying Torah at this point, again, to your dream king, you're not even studying Torah. We didn't know either.
Right.
But as long as they're seeking the Word and they're seeking the Lord, He's going to use His Word to bring them to where He wants them to be at that point.
Right. And He's going to use us who are walking in it to do that because we're the body.
Right.
You see, the physical body was walking through. Zacheus wanted to see it. If we'll function like the body, like we're supposed to, then they will start seeing it and looking for that.
I just thought of the whole body idea. So if you have, let's say, you have a hangnail, right? It's just not function right. You just tear it off and remove it. But if you have a nail that is growing fine, but it needs work, you file it. You file it down, you clean it up. Same thing. You have something else in your body that just isn't working right. If you have cancer, you cut it out. If not, and you can heal it, then you eat right. You do what you need to heal it, to nurture it. That's how that's how we need that Holy Spirit discernment. When to cut and when to nurture.
Yeah.
And if we don't, we listen to the wrong one, and then we're cutting off everything we should be nurturing.
Yes, because Zacheus, because of this act of kindness that Yeshua bestowed upon him and allowed Zacheus to entertain him, and then he tells this parable in Zacheus' presence, this really spoke to Zacheus because he says, Master, look, I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have taken whatever from anyone by false accusation, I repay fourfold. He sold everything and gave it to the poor, right? Because the people he stole from are the poor. He's given half of his possessions to the poor. He said fourfold, which means he is doing the maximum amount that someone in his position could have been guilty of. Because a tax collector, they say they're deceitful, they're dishonest, they misrepresent, they steal, but he took on the maximum penalty.
That's what Torah requires. He's following Torah by saying a fourth. If you steal, you give.
Right, but that's the maximum that he could have committed against someone.
Right.
And what did we just talk about last week? Last week, the man who had already been walking in Torah, who had done everything since his birth, wasn't willing to sell his possessions.
Right.
But then you've got this tax collector who's like, I will give everything up. See, it's the ones who come the furthest, who have been outcast, who have the furthest away when they bring him back are the ones like the prodigal son.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are kind of
sheep.
That are the most grateful and the most willing to follow it above and beyond.
Right.
We need to understand how far we have fallen from.
Yes.
So we can have this kind of attitude to go above and beyond because it is getting very interesting times. Why do we say it's getting dark outside? Because people are killing more. They're stealing more. They are doing all these things that even though people don't think they're following Torah, just our very laws of our Constitution follow Torah to the point. So I can imagine when you're kicked out into the darkness once Yeshua comes back, meaning that you just get to be out there with everyone else who doesn't want to follow Torah, it really is going to be a very dark place where people are gnashing their teeth.
Think about it. You really have no certainty. You have no boundaries in life. Yes. I want to be free, but really take all the boundaries away. You're just curled up in a corner, because you have nothing to rely on.
So let's go back to the famous verse that the Lord gives you the desires of your heart.
Yes.
So what do you desire? Do you desire to do Torah? You'll get to live in a Torah nation. You will get to live in the light. Do you desire to be against Torah? You will get that desire and you will be put into the darkness because you did nothing with that money, that down payment of the Holy Spirit that he gave you.
And like you've said before, so if you, by doing Torah, you have life. By not, you have death.
That's
so
right.
it really is that simple.
Death is just against Torah.
Right.
It's just the opposite of Torah. All right, the very last thing I want to talk about is...
Which is the first.
Yes, it is the first. Is 1835 through 43. And it's kind of interesting. I don't know really what to do with this. I've played around with some theories, but I don't really know what to do with it. So the Luke account of this says that when he was entering Jericho, he came across a blind man, one blind man. Okay?
Yeah.
And the blind man starts screaming out, "Son of David, Yeshua, have mercy on me," which is so typical of where we're at right now. Yeshua, have mercy on us. And what does he do? He heals our eyesight. We're not blind anymore. We can see our path. We can see his path. We can do what we're supposed to do. This man, as soon as he was healed, dropped everything, which he didn't have much. He had a little cloak, picked up his cloak, and he followed Yeshua to Jerusalem. And that's so reminiscent of the end of what we're going to go through, what we're going through right now. This is where I would say we're at. But what's interesting is the Luke account says when he went into Jericho before Zacheus, before the parable, that he meets the blind man. The Mark account says this happened when he was leaving Jericho right before he went to to Jerusalem.
It's the same account.
It seems to be the same account. The guy says the same thing. And then the Mark account, he names him. He names him Bartimaeus, which is son of Timaeus. And the Matthew account also has it leaving out of Jericho, but there's two of them. Which
Still same account?
Still the same account, but there's two of them. Now, the theory goes that I've researched is that the Mark and the Luke account were to Gentiles, and this man had become very famous. So it's like them just retelling a story. Oh, and you remember Bartimaeus?
Right.
This is
What
him.
happened with him, yeah.
The Matthew account was to the Jews, but it's said that there were really two of them, and that the other man was the one kind of famous throughout just the Jewish people. So while this guy was famous in the big world,
right,
this one was also the little, which I think is really kind of like, So if Matthew was kind of written to the Jews, talking about the kingly role,
right,
in the end, it would make sense that this happened right before, the last thing leaving Jericho before the big event, because in the Matthew version, he actually touches their eyes, physically touches them. But in the others, he says, your faith has healed you. Well, Yeshua's not with us right now.
Right.
But we're still crying out to him, have mercy on us, open our eyes, and he is. Because our faith, which is hear and obey, is giving us our eyesight. But when he comes back, the two sticks will be together.
Right.
The Jews and the Gentiles.
Well,
and he will physically be with us to teach us, and he will really open our eyes. I mean, our eyes will be so wide open that we will be like, what?
Overwhelmed. Sunglasses, please.
And that's what I just really think, that for those who love Torah and love life, Torah, the light, that we will be there in the kingdom to experience the way it's supposed to be experienced.
And loving Torah is loving our Messiah.
Yes.
And I say that because you have some that love Torah so much that they disregard living Torah, and then they stay on the written Torah.
Yes.
It's the understanding, the living
It's the
Torah.
way David loved Torah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the 119.
Yeah.
Psalms 119. Go back and read it. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, crying because the people aren't keeping it. He's not being judgmental. It's breaking his heart.
Right.
And the Lord really does do that with us as we walk in Him. I mean, I know my perspective is so different than what it was years ago. The way even I just see people, because it really is through the light of Torah now. The living Messiah in His Word, because the reason why we know what the living Messiah looks like is because of the Word.
That's right. All right, well, that's it. That's all I have for you today.
Good stuff.
It was good. It was a good one this week. So
Always
last
is.
week, basically, we had the importance of Torah, him pointing people back. What does Moses say? What does Moses say? This week, we seem to have the importance of the Holy Spirit, because that's that next.
That's those two working together.
The next step. After salvation, the Holy Spirit is given to you so you can walk it out and do what you are purposed to do with the foundation of Torah. We all have something that we need to do right now.
That's
We
right.
need to get serious about it, and we need to seek the Lord as to what that is.
Yeah.
All right, well, join us next week for episode 52. Been a year. 52 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
We've been doing
Yeah.
this a year.
It will be, because then the next one is Pincus, where we started.
Where we started. All right.
What?
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. We hope you have a fantastic week. Shalom.